The story of a mysterious forest. The night was unusually silent. Even the crickets, those tireless singers of dusk, seemed to have lost their voices. A cool wind drifted over the sleepy town of Eldenwood, carrying with it a faint, earthy scent, like pine needles after rain. At the far edge of the town, where the cobblestone streets met the wild, began an ancient forest known to all and entered by none. They called it Elarion's Vale. No one truly knew where the name came from. Some said it was once the home of forest spirits who guarded the earth's secrets. Others whispered that the forest itself was alive, watching, breathing, thinking. Children were warned never to go near it after sunset. But stories, no matter how dark, have a way of tempting those who crave the unknown. Among those dreamers was a young girl named Liora, a curious 17-year-old with storm-gray eyes and a restless heart. She had grown up on the edge of Eldenwood, where the forest loomed beyond her window like a dark ocean of leaves. Each night, before she slept, she would see faint lights flicker deep within the trees, pale, golden glows that danced like lanterns carried by unseen hands. Her grandmother, Elda, who had raised her since she was a child, would shake her head each time Liora asked about them. "They are not lights, my dear," Elda would whisper. "They're souls. And not all souls wish to be found." But that night, as thunder rolled far off over the hills and the moon carved silver shadows across her room, Liora could no longer resist. She packed a small lantern, a notebook, and the compass her late father had once owned. He, too, had been drawn to the forest before he vanished years ago, lost to its silence. She stood by her window, staring into the dense black beyond the fields. The forest seemed to breathe, as though it had been waiting for her. "Just one look," she murmured. "One step." The moment she crossed the fence, the air changed. The wind hushed. The crickets stopped. Even the clouds parted, letting moonlight pour down in thin silver veins that wove between the trees. The forest was unlike anything she had imagined. The trees were impossibly tall, their roots coiling like the backs of sleeping dragons. The air was thick with the scent of moss and forgotten rain. Every step she took echoed faintly, as though the ground itself remembered the sound of others who had once walked here. Then came the whispers. At first, she thought it was just the wind curling through the leaves, but the more she listened, the clearer they became. Voices, soft and layered, speaking in a tongue older than time. They seemed to rise and fall with her heartbeat, surrounding her like a hidden choir. "Turn back," one voice seemed to breathe. "No further," hissed another. But there was one voice, gentler, warmer, that called her name. "Liora." She froze. Her lantern flickered. No one in Eldenwood knew she had left. No one but her. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The forest answered with silence. Then, faintly, the golden lights appeared, 3 of them, weaving slowly between the trunks, drifting deeper into the woods. They hovered like curious fireflies, waiting. Her heart pounded. Logic screamed at her to run back home, but curiosity burned brighter. And so she followed. The deeper she went, the stranger everything became. The trees seemed to move, not sway, move, shifting subtly to close paths behind her. The lights floated ahead, guiding her through a narrow path covered in silver ferns that glowed faintly under the moon. Every now and then, she caught glimpses of carvings etched into bark, symbols she couldn't understand, pulsing faintly with light. Finally, she reached a small clearing where an ancient stone arch stood half-buried in vines. Beneath it ran a thin stream that glittered like liquid starlight. And beside that stream lay something that made her heart stop. A book, bound in deep green leather, half-soaked but still intact. It bore a single mark on its cover, the same crest engraved on her father's old compass. Liora knelt beside it, her fingers trembling. When she opened it, the pages were filled with sketches of trees, glowing plants, and strange symbols, and beneath one sketch, written in faded ink, were the words, "The forest is not what it seems. It remembers." A twig snapped behind her. She spun around. Between two great oaks stood a tall figure cloaked in mist. She couldn't see its face, only the faint shimmer of silver eyes watching her from beneath a hood. "You shouldn't have come here," the voice said softly. "The forest doesn't forgive." Liora took a step back, clutching the book to her chest. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head, the mist swirling around it like breath. "I am what remains of those who entered before you." And then, before she could move, the lights vanished, the mist collapsed into darkness, and the world around her shifted. The trees whispered her name again, but this time, it sounded like a warning. The world seemed to tilt. For a moment, Liora couldn't tell if she was standing still or if the forest itself had moved around her. The trees whispered in long sighs, their shadows bending like waves. She tried to take a step back, but the ground beneath her felt softer, like breathing earth. Her lantern flickered violently, then went out. "Wait!" she cried into the darkness. "Don't go!" But the figure was gone. Only the echo of its voice lingered in the air, haunting, distant, and heavy with sorrow. "The forest doesn't forgive." Leora's pulse quickened. She turned the compass in her hand, hoping it would guide her home. But the needle spun wildly, refusing to settle. It was as if north itself had been swallowed by the forest. Her father's compass had never failed before. Clutching it tight, she knelt beside the stream once more. The glowing water reflected her pale face and the trembling lantern light. The book, the one with her father's crest, lay open beside her, its pages fluttering as though stirred by invisible fingers. She read the first full entry aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "The forest breathes in memories. Every soul that enters leaves behind a part of itself. The deeper you go, the louder they become." The handwriting was unmistakable. It was her father's. Her eyes filled with tears. "You were here," she whispered. "You really came here." Lightning flashed through the canopy, and for an instant, the entire forest lit up in stark silver. In that single flash, she saw faces, dozens of them, pressed against the trunks of trees. Human faces, their eyes closed, their expressions calm as if asleep. But when the light faded, they were gone. Leora's breath came in sharp bursts. "No, that can't be." She stumbled backward, tripping over a thick root. The book slid into the stream, but before it drifted away, a low hum filled the air, soft at first, then rising into a deep vibration that pulsed through the ground. A voice spoke again, but this time it came from everywhere. "The forest remembers all who seek to take from it." The air grew colder. Mist crawled along the ground, coiling around her legs like smoke. From between the trees, soft lights appeared once more. But these were different. They were blue, not gold, and they hovered low to the ground, circling her. Then, from the mist, stepped a creature that defied reason. It had the body of a stag, its antlers wide and glimmering with faint runes that pulsed like veins of light. But its eyes were not animal. They were human, ancient, knowing. Liora gasped, her fear giving way to awe. What are you?" The creature lowered its head slightly, the blue lights orbiting faster around it. When it spoke, the voice echoed both in her ears and inside her mind. "I am Elarion, the guardian of the veil, the keeper of balance, the watcher of trespassers." Her hand tightened on the compass. "I'm not here to take anything. I just want to find my father." At that, the guardian's eyes dimmed. "Your father," it said slowly, as though tasting the word. "He entered this forest long ago. He sought what should never have been sought. He made a promise he could not keep." "What promise?" "To return." Leora's throat went dry. "He's still here, isn't he?" "Somewhere in this forest." The guardian stepped closer, and the trees seemed to bow as it passed. Its breath shimmered like fog in the moonlight. "Every soul that lingers becomes part of the forest. Some whisper, some wait, some forget they were ever human." Her voice cracked. "Then tell me how to find him." The guardian tilted its massive head. "There is a place where the forest's memory runs deepest, a lake of silver stillness. There you may find what you seek. But beware, Its gaze pierced her like a blade. The forest trades in memories, not mercy. To find what was lost, you must give something of your own. The mist thickened, swirling upward like a storm. The guardian began to fade, its glowing antlers dissolving into the air. "Follow the lights that do not burn," it said softly. "And remember, Liora, once the forest knows your name, it will never forget you." Then it was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Liora stood alone in the clearing, her heart pounding. The book was gone, the compass still spinning wildly in her hand. Around her, the forest seemed to lean closer, listening. For a moment, she thought she could hear a voice, her father's, echoing faintly through the leaves. "Don't let it take you too." She turned toward the sound. Beyond the trees, she saw a faint shimmer of silver light, steady and low, different from the golden ones before. "The lake," she breathed. And so, gripping the compass and her flickering lantern, she stepped deeper into Elarion's vale, following the silver light that waited somewhere beyond the darkness. Unseen behind her, carved faces in the trees opened their eyes. The forest seemed to breathe with her every step. Each time Leora's foot brushed the mossy ground, faint ripples of light spread out beneath her, as if the earth itself was awake and aware of her trespass. The deeper she ventured, the more unreal everything became. The air shimmered faintly, thick with drifting specks of silver that clung to her hair and eyelashes. The compass still spun uselessly in her palm, but the faint silver glow ahead was steady, a quiet pulse in the distance, like a heartbeat. She followed it through winding paths and tangled roots until the ground began to slope downward. The trees grew thinner here, their trunks twisting in spirals, their bark veined with light. Every now and then, she glimpsed shapes that vanished when she looked directly at them. Figures of mist, memories of those who had once walked this same path. Her lantern's flame dimmed, then flared again. Its light revealed carvings etched into the trees, familiar symbols she had seen in her father's journal. She traced one with her fingers, and the wood felt warm beneath her touch, pulsing softly, as if alive. Then she heard it, a voice, soft, melodic, and heartbreakingly familiar, singing through the air. It was her father's lullaby, the one he used to hum when she was little, the one her grandmother refused to sing after he disappeared. "Moon of silver, light my way, through the dark where shadows play. Keep my soul till dawn does break. Let the lost find what they seek." Her breath caught in her throat. "Father?" The song drifted ahead of her, leading her toward a clearing bathed in silver light. She pushed through the last curtain of branches and gasped. Before her stretched a vast lake, perfectly still, reflecting the stars above so clearly that it looked like a second sky. Mist hovered over its surface, curling and twisting into shapes that faded as soon as they formed. The air smelled faintly of rain and memory. Liora stepped closer, her boots sinking slightly into the damp soil. The silver glow she had been following pulsed beneath the water's surface, spreading outward in ripples that glittered like moonlight on glass. Then she saw him. A figure stood at the edge of a lake, his reflection shimmering in the still water. He was tall, with broad shoulders and dark hair that glowed faintly in the moonlight. He wore the same explorer's coat her father had owned, the one with the broken clasp and torn sleeve. Her voice trembled. "Father?" The figure turned slowly. His face was pale, his eyes hollow pools of light. For a heartbeat, she saw the man she remembered, the warmth, the kindness, but then his expression twisted into something sorrowful. "Liora," he said softly, "you shouldn't have come." Tears welled in her eyes. "I had to. You disappeared. Everyone said the forest took you, but I knew you wouldn't leave me." He took a step closer, his boots not disturbing the surface of the water. "I didn't mean to stay. But once you see the truth of the veil, it doesn't let you go." "What truth?" she asked, her voice cracking. He looked toward the lake. "This place isn't just alive. It's made of us. Every thought, every sorrow, every memory left behind becomes part of the forest. I came here seeking answers, and it showed me everything. But in return it took everything from me. The mist around them thickened, swirling like restless ghosts. The air pulsed with faint whispers, thousands of them, layered over each other in endless echoes. "It remembers," her father murmured. "Every moment, every sin." Liora shook her head.
No.
"There must be a way to break it, to free you." Her father looked at her with a flicker of pain in his eyes. "There is one way, but it comes at a cost." "What cost?" "The forest needs memory to survive. It feeds on what we cherish most. If you wish to take me back, you must give it something greater, something pure." Leora's chest tightened. "I don't understand." Her father reached out a trembling hand, stopping just short of touching her cheek. His fingers shimmered faintly, transparent. "Your memories, Liora."
Of me.
"Of us." The word struck her like a blade. "You mean, I'd forget you?" He nodded slowly. "Completely. The forest will release me, but it will keep your memories as the price. You'll go home. You'll live. But I will be a stranger to you. A name without a face." She staggered back, shaking her head.
No.
"I can't lose you again." Her father's voice broke. "You already have." Thunder rumbled faintly above the treetops. The surface of the lake began to tremble, waves of silver light spreading outward. From the mist, other figures began to emerge, faint outlines of lost souls. Some reached for her. Others simply watched, their hollow eyes filled with longing. "Choose, my daughter," her father whispered, "before the forest decides for you." Leora's mind raced. Her heart screamed to save him, but another part of her, the quiet, reasoned part, knew that if she gave up her memories, she would lose the very reason she came here. She looked down at the spinning compass in her palm. For the first time since she entered the forest, the needle stopped moving. It pointed toward the lake.
Toward her father.
"I came here for you," she whispered, "and I'll find a way to save you. But I won't let the forest decide what I remember." She stepped toward the water, the compass glowing faintly in her hand. The lake shuddered, the mist recoiling as if afraid. The whispers grew frantic. Her father's voice echoed through them, desperate. "Liora, no." But she didn't stop. She waded into the lake until the water reached her knees. It was warm, not wet, but soft, like walking through liquid light. Her reflection rippled and fractured, revealing fleeting images, her childhood, her grandmother, her father laughing beneath the stars. The compass pulsed once more, brighter than ever, then split open in her hand. Inside, hidden beneath the glass, was a single drop of crystal light, pure, steady, alive. Her father stared in awe. "Where did you?" "It's yours," she whispered. "It always was." She dropped it into the water. The lake erupted in a blinding flash. The forest howled, a deep, ancient sound that shook the ground beneath her feet. The faces in the trees cried out. The mist burned away in silver fire, and for one instant, Liora saw her father's face clear and human again, his eyes filled with love and sorrow. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he was gone. The lake fell silent. The silver light dimmed. The water stilled. Liora stood alone once more, tears streaming down her face, the broken compass heavy in her hand. Somewhere far above, dawn broke through the canopy, spilling the first light of morning over the forest. The whispers had stopped. But as she turned to leave, a new sound drifted through the air, soft, distant, familiar. "Moon of silver, light my way." Her father's lullaby. Only this time, it wasn't coming from her memory. It was coming from the trees. The first light of dawn broke through the canopy, like golden threads woven into the mist. Liora stood at the lake's edge, the cold wind brushing her face, carrying with it the faint scent of rain, and something else, something older. The forest was silent again, but it wasn't peace she felt. It was the silence that comes after something breathes for the first time. The lake shimmered faintly, then went still. Her father was gone. The light that had filled the clearing had vanished. But something deep beneath the water still pulsed, slow, rhythmic, alive. She whispered into the quiet, "Father?" Only her echo replied. She turned the compass over in her palm. The glass was cracked, the metal warped, but it no longer spun aimlessly. The needle pointed firmly east, toward the heart of the forest. Liora frowned. What now? As if in answer, a tremor rippled through the ground. The trees around her groaned, bending as though caught in a storm, but the air was still. From the lake's surface, thin lines of silver began to spread outward like veins of light, seeping into the soil, racing through the forest in every direction. Then came the sound, a deep, low hum that vibrated through her bones. It grew louder, echoing like a heartbeat beneath her feet. Something had awakened. She stumbled back as the trees around the clearing began to twist. Their roots bulged from the ground, curling like claws, and the once golden ferns turned gray. The air grew heavy, thick with the metallic scent of rain. From behind her, a voice spoke, low, broken, yet unmistakably familiar. You set it free. Liora spun around. The guardian, the great stag with ruined antlers, stood at the edge of the clearing. But it was changed. Its once luminous eyes were now dull, flickering weakly like dying stars. The glowing veins along its body pulsed erratically. Elarion, she gasped. What's happening? You gave the forest back its heart, it said, voice trembling. The lake was its prison. The light within your compass, it was the seal your father created before he was taken. Her eyes widened in horror. No, I thought it would save him. The guardian's massive head bowed. It did. But every gift given to this forest carries a shadow. You freed his soul, but also the one bound beneath it. A gust of cold wind swept through the clearing, carrying whispers that no longer sounded human. The ground beneath the lake cracked. Something dark and fluid began to rise from the depths, a shape that defied form, like smoke and shadow woven together. The heartless root, Elarion said, voice barely audible. The first spirit of the forest. The one that feeds on memory and loss. Long ago, your father and I sealed it away. It was his choice, his sacrifice. The shape in the water grew taller, its edges flickering like torn fabric. From its center, a faint human silhouette emerged, slender, graceful, almost beautiful, but its face was an empty hollow. It remembers you, child of the seal, it whispered. The voice wasn't sound. It was thought, sliding through her mind like smoke. Every word felt like a memory being peeled away. Liora clutched her head, falling to her knees. Get out of my mind. You came here seeking what was lost, the shadow hissed. Now you will remember for me. The air turned icy. Images flashed before her eyes. Her father's smile, her grandmother's lullabies, the house at the edge of town, all flickering, dissolving. Elarion roared, slamming its hooves against the ground. Blue light exploded outward, forming a barrier between Liora and the shadow. Run, the guardian thundered. It feeds on your memories, your grief. Go to the heart of the forest. Find the tree of voices before it finds you. I'm not leaving you, she shouted. But the guardian's light was fading. Its form flickered like a candle in the wind. You already have, it whispered. Now run. And then the barrier shattered. The shadow surged forward, tendrils of darkness lashing out, striking the trees, draining their color. Liora turned and sprinted through the forest, branches tearing at her arms and hair. The forest that once whispered softly now screamed. Every rustle of leaf and groan of wood was a voice shouting her name.
Liora.
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 Her lungs burned, her heart pounding like drums. The compass in her hand glowed faintly, the needle quivering with urgency. She followed it blindly, stumbling through roots and mist until she reached a narrow gorge where a fallen tree formed a bridge across a deep chasm. Behind her, the ground split. The shadow poured through the crack like liquid night. Without thinking, she ran across the tree trunk, slipping once, nearly falling, but she caught herself. As she leapt to the other side, the trunk snapped, plunging into the abyss below. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. The compass flickered, its glow now weaker than before. The whispers had stopped again. But in their place came a new sound, a faint hum, melodic, almost human. She turned toward it and saw something she hadn't expected, a tree taller than the rest, its trunk wide as a house, its bark carved with countless symbols that glowed faintly in blue and gold. The compass lay beside her, cracked but still glowing faintly. She picked it up and smiled. She didn't remember why she had come here. She didn't remember the forest, or the shadows, or even the face of the man who had once sung to her. But as she turned to leave, she found herself humming a tune she didn't know she knew. Moon of silver, light my way. And far above, deep in the heart of Elarion's vale, the tree of voices hummed softly in reply. The forest grew strangely still. No breeze, no rustle of leaves, only the faint shimmer of moonlight pouring through the ancient branches. Liora stood at the edge of the lake, her reflection rippling faintly upon its glassy surface. The silver water pulsed softly, as if it were alive and waiting. Behind her, the guardian's voice echoed faintly through memory. To find what was lost, you must give something of your own. The weight of those words pressed down on her chest. She took a deep breath, clutching the compass. It no longer spun. Its needle was fixed, pointing directly into the heart of the lake. Her father's compass. Her only link to him. She stepped closer, her boots sinking into the soft, damp soil. Then she noticed something strange. In the reflection, her father's face appeared beside hers. For a single moment, he stood there smiling, just as she remembered. Eyes bright, hands steady, full of warmth. "Father," she whispered, dropping to her knees. Please tell me how to reach you." The reflection blinked, and then it spoke. "You shouldn't have come here, Liora." Her breath caught. "I couldn't just leave you," she said, tears spilling. "I thought I could save you." The reflected image of her father seemed pained. "The forest doesn't release what it claims. It only trades." "I'll give anything," she said without hesitation. "Anything it asks." "Even your name?" Liora hesitated. The shadows around the lake stirred. From the silver water, faint shapes began to emerge, translucent figures, men and women, children and wanderers, their forms made of mist and light. Their eyes were hollow, their mouths silent. They drifted in slow circles, bound to the water's edge. One reached out toward her, and though its face was featureless, she felt a deep ache of sorrow. "The lost souls," she murmured. "These are the ones who try to bargain?" A voice, neither her father's nor her own, whispered directly into her thoughts. They forgot their names, and the forest forgot them. She looked down at the compass, at the engraved initials on its back. T, her father's mark. Slowly, painfully, she understood what she had to do. The compass was the last part of him still in her world. Her fingers trembled as she held it above the lake. "If this is what it takes, take it. Let him go free." The forest seemed to sigh. The silver surface rippled outward, glowing brighter. The whispering souls paused their drifting to watch. She dropped the compass into the water. The moment it vanished beneath the surface, the forest moved. The ground trembled, the trees swayed violently though no wind blew, and from deep within the lake came a sound, soft at first, then rising like a haunting melody. It was a song, woven from the voices of all who had been lost. And within that song, she heard her father's voice clearly for the first time. "You've done it, my brave girl." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Where are you? Let me see you." "You can't," the voice said gently. "My place is here now. But you've broken the chain. The forest will sleep again." The mist around her shimmered and began to rise toward the canopy. The pale spirits, once lost, drifted upward like stars, their forms dissolving into light. The lake glowed brighter and brighter until the entire forest was bathed in silver radiance. And then, just as suddenly, it was over. The light faded. The forest grew quiet once more. The lake returned to stillness, calm, deep, and empty. Liora knelt at its edge, heart aching with both grief and peace. "Goodbye, father," she whispered. "Thank you for leading me here." As she turned to leave, she realized something strange. The forest no longer felt threatening. The faces in the trees were gone, the air no longer heavy. The oppressive silence had been replaced by a gentle hum, like distant birdsong returning after a long storm. She followed the path out, guided not by the compass now, but by the faint golden lights that flickered ahead. They led her through the familiar arches of twisted branches, over moss and stone, until the first light of dawn pierced through. When she finally stepped out of the forest, the sun had risen. The mist behind her began to fade, and for a fleeting second, she thought she saw her father standing at the forest's edge, watching her with pride before vanishing into the morning light. She smiled through her tears. The forest of Elarion's Vale was once again at peace, and though it would remain mysterious to all who passed it, somewhere deep within its heart, the guardian and the souls of the lost now rested in harmony. But as she looked back one last time, a single whisper drifted on the breeze. The forest never forgets. And Liora knew. She would never forget either. The village of Valemore lay bathed in gentle morning light when Liora finally emerged from the trees. The familiar thatched roofs and cobblestone paths greeted her like an old friend. Birds chirped, and smoke curled lazily from chimneys. Yet as she stepped past the first gate, an eerie stillness hung in the air, not of danger, but of change. She paused, glancing back at the forest that had consumed her night. From this distance, it looked ordinary again, a quiet line of green, whispering faintly in the breeze. No mist, no glowing lights, no haunting voices. And yet, deep in her heart, Liora knew it was never truly still. She took a deep breath, clutching her now empty hand where the compass had once been. "It's over," she murmured. "I did what you asked, Father." As she crossed the village square, people turned to stare. The old baker froze mid-step. The stable boy dropped his broom. Even the old clock tower seemed to tick louder, as if the entire village had been holding its breath. "Liora," someone whispered. "Is that really you?" She smiled faintly. "It's me, Mira." Her childhood friend ran forward, embracing her tightly. "You were gone for days. We thought the forest took you like it did your father." Liora hesitated, glancing at the treeline. "Maybe it did, but it also let me go." Myra's eyes widened. "You went inside?" Liora nodded. "And I found him." Gasps rippled through the gathered crowd. No one dared step into the Vale. No one who entered had ever returned before. For centuries, it had been forbidden ground. The forest was the village's fear, its legend, its curse. The elder approached, his cane tapping softly against the stones. "Child," he said in a trembling voice, "what did you find in there?" Liora hesitated. How could she explain what she had seen? The spirits, the guardian, the song of the lost. Words felt too small. "I found peace," she said at last. "And I think the forest did too." The elder studied her face for a long time. "Then perhaps its hunger has ended." Liora smiled, but something in her chest ached. She turned toward her home, the small cottage by the stream where her father's workshop still stood. Dust gathered on the windowsill, tools lay untouched, and a half-carved wooden figurine rested on his desk, a small bird with unfinished wings. She traced its feathers with her finger. "You never got to finish it," she whispered. Suddenly, a faint rustle came from behind her. The air grew colder, just slightly. On the windowsill, a single leaf had appeared, small, golden, and glowing faintly in the dim light. Liora frowned. "That's not from any tree here." She picked it up, and at once, she felt a pulse, a heartbeat, faint but real, beneath her fingertips. Her breath hitched. The leaf shimmered, and for a split second, she heard a familiar voice whisper, "Liora, the forest remembers you." Her fingers trembled, and the leaf dissolved into tiny sparks of light that sank into her skin. She gasped, stumbling backward, clutching her arm. The mark that appeared there was faint, a pattern like vines curling around her wrist. Her heart raced. No, it can't be. Outside, the wind began to pick up. The trees beyond the village swayed, as if something was stirring again. Yet it wasn't ominous. It was alive, watching, aware. Mira rushed in,
eyes wide. Liora.
Are you all right? I'm fine, she lied, pulling down her sleeve to hide the mark. Just tired. That night, Liora sat by her window, staring at the moonlit horizon. The forest looked calm, but every so often, a faint glimmer of blue light would flicker between the trunks, not threatening, but calling. She touched the mark on her wrist. It pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. She realized then what the guardian meant when he said the forest never forgets. She had traded something more than her father's compass. She had traded her name. From deep within the forest, a whisper rose again, the same soft melody that had echoed from the lake, but this time, she heard her own voice in the harmony. The forest was singing her story now, and though her heart ached with the weight of it, she smiled. For she understood. The forest was not a curse to be broken, but a balance to be tended. Her father had been its keeper. Now she would be too. As dawn crept over the valley, Liora stepped outside. The villagers watched from their windows as she walked toward the edge of the forest once more. The mist parted gently, as if welcoming her back. You took something from me, she whispered, but you gave me something greater, purpose. She laid her hand on the bark of the nearest tree. The vines on her wrist glowed softly, and in return, the tree's surface shimmered faintly like living skin. The forest's voice came again, low and ancient. Welcome home, Liora of the Vale. And as the morning sun rose above Valemore, a new guardian was born, one who carried both the memory of loss and the strength of life. The days that followed were quiet, but not the kind of quiet that frightened Liora anymore. The forest no longer loomed as a shadow beyond the village. It hummed softly like a heartbeat, alive yet calm, as if watching over the valley. The villagers, once fearful, began to return to their normal lives. Children played by the stream again, and elders spoke of how the fog had lifted for the first time in decades. The name Elarion's Vale, once spoken with dread, was now whispered with awe. And Liora, she walked among them, but she was no longer quite the same. Every sunrise, she felt it, the pull of the forest. Her veins thrummed with energy that wasn't entirely human anymore. When she passed beneath trees, their leaves trembled faintly in recognition. When she whispered to the soil, flowers bloomed where her feet touched. She could hear things now, the quiet thoughts of roots, the gentle laughter of streams, even the sighs of the wind. The forest had not merely spared her, it had chosen her. Still, a part of her longed for her father's voice. Though she had set him free, the ache of his absence never faded. One morning, just as dawn broke, Liora awoke from a dream of silver water and her father's compass resting beneath its surface, still glowing faintly in the depths. She felt compelled to return to the lake once more, not as a seeker this time, but as its new guardian. She told no one where she was going. With each step toward the forest, her heart grew lighter. The mist parted easily before her, forming a path lined with soft, blue light. Birds called from the branches, their songs no longer haunting but serene. When she reached the lake, it was just as she remembered, still, silver, and eternal. The reflection that stared back at her, however, was different. Her eyes shimmered faintly with gold, and the mark around her wrist had bloomed into a delicate vine pattern that glowed in rhythm with the water. She knelt, touching the surface. Ripples spread outward, and the forest answered with a low hum. "Welcome, Keeper of the Vale," the voice of the forest murmured. Liora smiled softly. "I thought I'd lost everything that night. But you were never trying to take from me, were you?" "Loss teaches balance," the voice replied. "Only through what we give can we remember what truly matters." She looked into the water once more, and this time, her father's reflection appeared beside hers. He was smiling calm, proud. "Father," she whispered, tears welling. "You've done what I could not," the reflection said gently. "You've tamed the sorrow. The forest knows peace because of you." She pressed her hand against the water, and though her fingers touched only ripples, warmth flooded through her. "Will I ever see you again?" Her father's voice faded like wind through leaves. You already do, in every root, in every song of the trees. I am part of it now, and so are you. The reflection shimmered and dissolved, leaving behind only her own face, but her expression was no longer sorrowful. It was peaceful, radiant. She stood, and from the lake's edge, she could see the village through the clearing, distant, small, safe. She realized then that her story was not one of loss, but of becoming. From behind her, a soft rustle broke the silence. She turned to see Elarion, the great stag, emerging from the mist. His antlers glowed faintly, and his eyes, wise and ancient, met hers. "You have fulfilled your promise," he said. "The veil breathes once more." Liora bowed her head. "I understand now. The forest wasn't cursed. It was grieving." "And you healed it," Elarion replied. "But remember, peace is not the end. It is the balance between beginnings." He lowered his antlers, and a single golden leaf drifted toward her. She caught it, feeling its pulse strong, alive. "When the forest calls again," Elarion said, "it will be through this." And with that, he turned and vanished into the mist, his body dissolving into streams of light that wove themselves back into the air. Liora tucked the golden leaf into her cloak and began the walk back home. But as she stepped beyond the forest's edge, she didn't feel like she was leaving it. She was the forest now, its song, its breath, its living heart. The villagers greeted her with awe, calling her the keeper of Elarion's Vale. But she never claimed the title. Instead, she spent her days teaching the children of Valemore to respect the forest, to listen to its whispers rather than fear them. And when night came, she would look out across the valley, where faint silver light still shimmered between the trees. Sometimes, she thought she saw her father walking there, just beyond the mist, his lantern glowing faintly, watching over her as she once searched for him. She smiled each time and whispered softly into the wind, "I'm here, Father. The forest is safe." And in response, a soft rustle would echo through the leaves, like the sound of a distant heartbeat. The villagers said the forest had changed forever after Leora's return. It no longer swallowed travelers or whispered threats. It sang, a song of memory, of love, of balance. A song that told the story of a girl who went into the darkness to find her father, and instead found herself.